we do have a special treat for you today. We have a guest speaker, Manish Chourey, who is the Chief Technology Officer. Oh, starting my video. So we have Manish Chourey, who is the Chief Technology Officer for the North Carolina Turnpike Authority. He has many years of experience in the tolling space. He's doing a lot of really innovative things. If anyone was at CES in Las Vegas this year and you saw the future of in-car payments, that was something that Manish and his team really helped architect. It's a fantastic discussion about where we go next. RFID has been used sort of the backbone of electronic toll collection for a very long time, but things are changing. There are a multiplicity of possible technologies out there, and Manish and the folks in North Carolina are really taking a leadership position and looking at that. And so I thought, I can't think of anyone better to lead us into what's next than Mr. Chourey. Are you able to join us and turn your camera on? Fantastic, sir. Floor is yours.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, all good. Thank you.
Perfect. So just to give you a background of myself, I've been 30 plus years in the IT software programming programming arena, of which 25 plus years have been in the tolling domain. Majority of my focus has been in design and development of transaction processing systems. I've worked as a systems integrator, as a solution architect and a senior director of development activities, deployed systems across the US. And for last 6 years, I've been working with North Carolina Turnpike Authority as a CTO for toll operations. Just for a background, North Carolina Turnpike Authority has been leading a decade of innovations. So you can see 2011, NC QuickPass was founded, and it was the first system which we had went completely AET. And then subsequent in 2014, being where North Carolina is in the country, we had east and northeast and southeast, two different protocols between the transponders acting as a bridge. In 2014, we became the first agency to do dual protocol reads for both for TDM and SIGO. And leading the charge in 2017, we became the first tolling agency to read all the three protocols. And essentially, when I say all the three protocols, is TDM, SIGO, and 6E. That was deployed in 2017. 2019, taking us continuing further, we established a vision for our service-based architecture, which is a platform which we would develop and deploy it in a cloud environment. This happened in 2023. Deployed the system using APIs. More of APIs allowed us to do responsive web, mobile apps, and open up Google Pay, Apple Pay sort of things. Continuing in 2024, more on the roadside, we deployed one of our recent deployments, which is a 17-mile, three-lane, two-shoulder roadway with no in-pavement sensors, and have been now in production for almost 5 to 6 months, and we have been doing very well with that approach. And also, during this deployment, as you know, in any greenfield project, the fiber takes the longest to get in place. So we did include our solution to support via 5G while the fiber gets laid down. So try to do different things in our environment as to keep ourselves moving forward. On the right side, you see Raleigh area and the Charlotte area, two different areas where most of our tolling right now is focused, and we are growing through more in our state. Turnpike uh, established its vision and strategy in over three pillars. The first pillar was to build a service-oriented open API-based platform with loosely coupled architecture, just to allow us to plug and play different best of breed technologies as we can, and also enable us to deploy technology faster. And just the reasoning behind that is, today the tolling system refresh takes a longer time, and with where the industry has gone, and apple Android, they all can deploy software every year. And so the question comes is, why can't we do it and keep up with the technology? So that was one of the reasons we built the open API platform. um, the purpose driven future we see is that increase our payment options, always looking for alternates uh, to increase our penetration with customers. And also, during this process, when we did this, we allowed mobile app payments as an alternate for our customers. Also, with upcoming issues which you all understand about the spectrum, in the needs of the spectrum by other commercial usage, and also for safety and GPS backup capabilities, there is a threat to the our tolling industry with regards to, or any industry which uses RFID. And so that that's going to happen, and technology is going to change. So we got to be prepared to do that. So we continue to look at those options. And third is being ourselves being have the ability to manage and look at our data. Uh, we 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 believe in having the knowledge of our data helps us do better operational decisions. And so with our roadside or back office, we have been able to uh, extract the data into our semantic models using Power BI for visualization. And at present, we as NCTA have been able to get the data and use the data for our reconciliation and compliance perspectives. Um, um, this we had as NCTA was opening up a 17-mile roadway, as I mentioned, three lane, two-shoulder expressway in September 2024. Uh, an incident occurs where I would play this. You can see that this is our toll gantry. This is a dump truck comes with a bad up, hits the gantry, and this is 6 weeks before we cut over uh, to our new roadway. We reached out to multiple vendors across the tolling systems and said, could you provide us a solution so that we can collect revenue from day one? I mean, this was a location where we had over 15,000 transactions per day. This, on the other side of the view, uh, this really happened. And that just told us that we have to be prepared for these type of incidents, accidents, disasters, hurricanes, anything which can happen. And we have to find alternate ways to collect our revenue. We deployed a system. Within 6 weeks, we had an emergency contract, and we deployed a solution with side fire cameras. And we've been collecting over 15,000 transactions since day one, and we avoided losing revenue. So NCTA has a vision about digital platform. And what does that mean to us? It's a platform which you see in the center, which acts like Apple TV. You should be able to have the basic things, which are like, you should have a network, power connectivity, sort of basic things. And then you should be able to add and remove or upgrade any of the apps which you need. So that's what I say is what I consider our digital platform, and should be built with open APIs. As you can see in this particular incident which occurred, we had to have the ability to process our revenue transactions without losing them, and have the ability to plug and play was one of the key things. In this particular incident, I had two specific toll vendors who helped us both getting the transactions captured from the lane and route those transactions to our back office system to collect revenue. This is where I see ourselves continuing to mature and transition over periods of time, whether it's connected vehicles in car payments, whether we have payment apps coming up, all of these, or V2X solutions which coming up, they should all be capable of talking to us. And as in tolling agency, we are the middleware, or any hubs, they can collect the transactions and route to specific back offices, service provider back offices, or to payment gateways. And the primary goal of this platform is to continuously evolve with the annual enrollment in investment capabilities and transition new features every 6 to 9 months. Just giving you a little bit flavor of different APIs one has to build to make this platform work. We have to have standardizations across the different APIs, whether it's roadside system interfaces, interfacing to payment gateways, interfacing to service provider OEMs, DMV lookups, and also ability to do self-service from the customer perspective. So lots of different APIs need to be built to allow these capabilities. So, so in the as Jason mentioned, in this year January 2025, JJ Eden, our executive director, more known for being as an industry disruptor and innovator, presented an alternate payment option at the Consumer Electronics Show in CES. That particular had esteemed panels from transportation industry, retailer industries, and payment system providers. This panel primarily discussed solutions which are developed with different car manufacturers and how it could integrate with the payment networks. All use cases were related to in-car payments. In the ones which we enjoyed most is the tolling use cases, but also there were retail use cases. It's like more like when you're on a drive and you could have your spouse or a person in the passenger vehicle spend their time doing in-car shopping. And when you do shopping, which payments to use in sort of integration of the app in the car app to the payment gateway was of interest. And obviously, that comes with what's the security and how do you authenticate customers or individuals. So there were solutions which were put in for biometric authentications, and these were all working solutions. There were vendors providing those, especially the payment guys like Mastercard, Visa, JP Morgan, and so on. So these were working solutions capable of doing that. And so the question comes is, how do we use that in our tolling use case? When we finished the presentation, CEO of a large car wash company came in and said, hey, how can we come into and get the benefit of this abilities? So these are things which are possible. And so these two pilots which we are thinking of working on, one is the in-car app for toll payments. And I say in-car app is different than a mobile mobile app. This is an in-car app running on the OS of the car OS. And then how can the V2X has lots of different use cases, and what we're looking at is how can it help in toll payments as we evolve. So one of the approach which we presented is the in-car payment enrollment option. So you go and buy a car in now most of the folks enroll themselves into the data service which is provided. So right there you can enroll yourself with a car. I mean, there are different solutions in car. I mean, there are ITM devices which are also available in car. But then there is apps which can be available. So there are lots of different options. But think of the approach is that you have an approach where you go. In this particular case, the customer goes, enrolls themselves. The enrollment happens is the place where you enter your customer information, your vehicle ID, your license plate information. Sometimes license plate may not be there at that time when you're buying the car. So the VIN ID is one which is pretty common at the time when you're buying a car. The relationship here which happens is that relationship then ties to a payment. And that payment information is on this website or app or mobile app, wherever you would use an app, website app, not in the car, outside the car. Car industry in our discussions did not want to get involved in the PCI and other related compliance issues. So it's thought of a website. And from a website, you would go into a payment gateway where you're tying the VIN ID or the license plate to a payment token. And that token resides just at the payment gateway. It never leaves that place. Once the customer enrolls successfully, the manufacturer knows that the car is enrolled. And so here, in this particular case, Turnpike would know that the car is enrolled. In this then what happens when the car goes through the roadway? The payment gateway or middleware acts as the credit card processor for these payments, right? And that's the repository. Payment gateway is the only person which knows how your vehicle is connected or linked to the credit card or your payment token. Nobody, neither the car app, neither the tolling agency knows anything about the credit card. It's completely isolated. So all transactions when you travel through the car app, there are challenges with that, right? So do we want data? I mean, there's cost to the data. So in this particular pilot, which we are working on, is that we would do in a batch fashion. When the trip completes, the car app provider using the geolocation is going to generate a transaction and send it to the payment gateway. Payment gateway will in turn would not know the toll amount, could be dynamic toll amounts, could be different time of day pricing. They would send information asking us what the toll amount is. We will then package that transaction for payment with the toll amount. If the transaction gets approved, we mark that transaction as in-car paid transaction. That transaction then is sent to our back office system where the customer may have an account or is enrolled, and the transaction gets posted. If the payment fails, our existing enforcement methods will process the transactions and move forward. So while this has all happened in January, while we were also being reached out and approached by multiple vendors, roadside vendors, interested in seeing how V2X can work in the tolling environment. And so we feel that the pilot, we have two specific assets available for us. and one in Charlotte, one in Raleigh area to provide this ability to do this validation, V2X for tolling. Uh, Primarily, the first phase, there are two phases we are thinking. Phase one would be to do the demonstration of the V2X, just it's standalone between the RSE and RSE or RSU and OBU, have that interface validated. And the second phase of that would be how we could use the how we could use this, incorporate into a toll gantry to make sure that it becomes the third way of payment. Either it's a transponder or it's a plate based, or it could be a OBU in the car marked for in-car payment. Also, in this particular interface, we would have to build interfaces with the service provider, whosoever is the service provider, to reconcile our transactions. At the end of it, as an agency, we are interested in being sure that all the traffic which went through the gantries, we are able to collect the money for it. And if not, we enforce through our regular methods. Just during this stage one of this capabilities, we will ensure like the existing gantry zone controller RSUs can communicate and talk to each other to perform multiple tests. This is pretty high level at this time. I don't think we have got to the next level of details related to this, but that's something which we are working on and will continue to work on. As this pilot might take a little longer versus the car app pilots might be something which we plan on completing this year. Most likely quarter 4 of this year, and this might go into next year. During stage one, we might be able to do that, and stage two will be where we involve these transactions for actually making payments with our back office and reconcile with a service provider, whosoever the service provider's back office would be. So the question comes is why are we looking for alternate payment options? As I initially mentioned, that disasters or incidents or accidents can happen at any given time. You should be nimble and able to find alternate ways to collect revenue. And now after doing that, I get a lot of questions is why do you need gantries? Why can't you just deploy this solution? So that's as a tolling agency, our mission is to focus on collecting tolls, reduce the infrastructure at any possibility, and be able to evolve with the technology. So that I see from the agency perspective, but from a customer perspective, we meet the customer where they need the options. We avoid the other option in this space is by having phone apps versus a car app is different. Just it avoids multiple apps, all the other use cases within the car, how many customers, and people can type plate numbers incorrectly or so on, versus a digital information coming from in-car app or in-car data. We have the unique vehicle ID or the VIN ID, whatever would be the method. We would be able to get those transactions in a digitalized format. And there's the use cases of somebody disabling that or a Bluetooth not working. Those all use cases get subsequently simplified. I'm sure there will be new use cases coming out, which we'll have to work through. But at this time, we're going to do these two pilots to see what works best for us. And security from the customer perspective, you wouldn't have any card information in the car or in the apps, in the mobile apps. It's all secured within a gateway provided by larger payment processors. or if there is a tolling agency who wants to do it as themselves as a gateway, they could do that as well. So we're trying to prove the pilots, and we see that there is a potential that these pilots can give us alternate payment options. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see that there's some questions in the chat. Did you answer those questions already, live answer, or can we answer those right now before we let you go?
Yeah, we could. Yes, I have not looked at the questions.
Yeah, Manish, why don't you put your camera on? We'll have a little chat here, and we'll
His
go
camera's
through.
on.
Okay.
Mine
fantastic.
camera is on. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I thought that was a fantastic presentation. It's really interesting. I always find it interesting when we have presentations about not just about what maybe we think we might want to do, but what agencies are actually doing, and putting their money where their ideas are. So I see we already have some questions in the chat box. Encourage anyone else who has other questions to enter those in. I'm going to just start with a basic one. So, Manish, I was remiss in giving the sort of overview of your storied career, but as I recall our conversation, you started life back at Lockheed Martin or Lockheed IMS,
That's
and
correct.
helping to architect some of the earliest electronic toll collection, the origins of Easy Pass and interoperability, and you've been thinking about these problems for a while. And it's always been curious to me. Tolling has remained focused on RFID transponders for quite some time. Yet in other areas of transportation, we've had this. I think it's been almost 15 years now. This explosion of other options for mobile payments, from bike share to sort of peer-to-peer car rentals, micro-mobility options, rideshare, Uber, all that. And why do you think it's taken so long in the tolling space to have folks doing exactly what you're doing?
I mean, I would say it's two primary reasons. In the tolling, we have contracts and investments which are long-term investments. So typically, you get the contracts; those are 8 to 10 years, 11 years. So it's a little difficult for the agencies to move forward. And the second is, the RFID has been a good solution, and we have a large AVI penetration across the country. So, and it's the cheapest way of collecting money today. With the transponders now for 30 cents, 37 cents, it's hard to beat that. But when the scenarios like I mentioned, where we had a gantry completely collapsed due to an accident or a hurricane or disasters can happen. And the other one, which we all know, next steps need to take the spectrum. And there is both the groups, tolling groups and the other groups are trying to, hold on to the spectrum. So,
well, I think, in the connected vehicle world, we experienced that not very long ago with the Wi-Fi industry really looking to take a piece of the spectrum and this tussle between DSRC and C-V2X. But I'm watching what's happening with NextNav, and I'm saying to myself, even if tolling industry prevails today, that there's a shrinking pool of spectrum, and those fights are just going to continue, I think. So thinking about it and doing something like you are is, I think, incredibly wise and important. Well, let's get the ball with some of these questions. I know that Lev Pinellas had a pretty good question. Hopes the future of tolling technology can be connected vehicle based, but the actual prospects have been unclear. How do we move towards a CV tolling application in our industry? What do you think is the most promising development?
For the, I think the pilot which we are working on from the car industry and the payment gateway shows bigger players. Tolling agency is a very small group of people and agencies. Having the commercial large companies investing into the technology and solutions will help the CV-based solutions. I mean, a lot of the phone-based systems and even the Cyrus XM and other solutions which came up, it's difficult if you don't have a big business model. And so having larger payment options in the car industry can open up not just for tolling, as you heard that there were retail options. You could go to you'd go food drive through food, and those type of models will enable it. Otherwise, the business model is very difficult to sustain. And if the customer has an option to get it for free, why would they pay additional 80 cents or $1 for toll? So I think that's one. Second one, I would say, is just the solutions which have been so far has been more mobile phone based, which has a use cases, struggling use cases, versus if the car industry is going to open it up, including the RSUs which they are going to work on, or work on the apps which are inbuilt, which we all use in the cars. I think it's going to change the business model.
I think it's really fascinating. The origins of Omnier in the tolling industry, in part because it was long viewed that connected vehicle technology would be a communications option for tolling, and it's sad that it's taken this long, but I'm excited about the work you guys are doing. So Jeff has a really interesting question. I think you touched on this briefly in your presentation, but talking about standards and protocols, what standard is this going to be? A standards-based approach? What standards will be referenced in the tolling pilot? And I know you mentioned one there, but maybe give some thoughts on that.
I mean, we are definitely looking at the SAE standards for J3217 spec, which has been laid down. We are still understanding, and I mean, it's a pretty high level specifications. Then you got to dig in further on what's the other additional information which we need. I mean, we've been looking at how do you handle the occupancy information? How do you handle other related information into the specifications? And maybe the specifications has it, but I think we are working to simplify our understanding of the specification so we can really find its commercial use or applicability to our solutions.
Well, I think it's exciting. I know that our RUC working group has a Tiger team focused on the J3217/R standard, and so I think the J3217 and thinking about how this is applied in the tolling space is going to be really important. How do we test for that? Something we're thinking about. Mr. Catalico has a question about transactions paid through the app match to the toll violations at Lane. And he's referencing a pilot they have in Illinois. I don't know if, Michael, you wanted to ask the question yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of put it in sketchy there. When you showed, hey Manish, when you showed your schema, your ecosystem of the app talking to the gateway back to the back office, I wasn't clear on what's actually matching. So there's nothing in the lane, right? It's a GPS based app, I assume. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're getting some timestamps, some GPS coordinates. The gateway says, here's a payment. Did you develop a corresponding matching so that A, you don't double bill the customer, and B, you don't absorb those costs of trying to go down the path to double bill them? So
yeah, I mean, so Mike, Win ID is one thing which we are capturing as we slowly transition, but also we are going to, using the Win ID, we are working through DMV to get the name, the plate number associated with that vehicle. That plate number then allows us to do any kinds of duplicate checks or checks to avoid that enforcement transaction which comes from the roadside.
So the app is transmitting the VIN just like a telematics type. It's part of the message set. Okay.
That's correct.
Like
That's
that.
correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Very similar to what we're doing.
Good.
Identical to it, but in a lot of ways. But
we got two agencies. Maybe we have the makings of interoperability. Maybe there's some cooperation.